What's up, everybody? You know who it is. I want to talk about a subject that many people have mentioned to me, and they suggested that I should cover it. But I kind of shied away from it because it's a very interesting story. In fact, I'm working on a script for it. I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere or not, but I just want to talk about it and discuss it. And this video is not gonna go too in depth into the story. But the next subsequent videos on this particular topic will cover the Car Barn Bandits more in depth. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so this broadcast here is impromptu. It wasn't planned. I'm just going off of what I know and what I've gathered. And we're going to spend a couple minutes speaking about it. So in 1903, there was a criminal element, an underground criminal element in Chicago, and it was deeply rooted, and it involved people from all stripes, all races, all walks of life, from homeless people, transients, hobos, to gangsters, and um, criminal organizations that were pre-mafia or pre-American mafia, I should say. And in the middle of all of this, well, before I even go into it, like Chicago between the Great Chicago Fire and like the beginning of the Great Depression is like one of my favorite eras of history to cover. This also covers Gary, Indiana history. That's where I'm from. It covers, Indianapolis history, Detroit history, anything of that nature. I really love that era because it's so weird, like you're still living with the old ways of things as how they were done, but then like we're pre-industrial revolution, so like it's a mix of the old way and the new way that's coming together in a certain particular way. The world is changing and things really don't look all that great, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to go into the economy and anything like that, but if there was a criminal element, then that, things were pretty bad. So, what kind of criminal elements are we talking about? We're talking about prostitution, which was huge. I'm not sure if the term pimp was around back then, but for our terminology, there were a lot of them. Um, then you had independent brothels. I know a lot of you history buff know about the Everly Sisters. They were very prominent in Chicago in the Levee District. And the Levee District really doesn't exist anymore, but anyone who's into Chicago history, they know about the Levee District. It was very notorious. It was dangerous. It was pretty much Chicago's red light district within the red light district. All right. You had rows and rows and rows of brothels and taverns and bars and motels, hotels, and there were all kinds of debauchery going on. That's the era where people wear the long coats and they have their face covered with their collar, their hands in their pocket, walking down the street, looking around, got their hair all down in the darkness, trying to go look for a prostitute or look for some drugs or gamble or anything, of vice. The vice lords in that era made a lot of money, and a lot of the vice lords in that era ended up becoming prominent politicians. So you had politicians with their hands deep in the red light district, and they're basically running everything. And it's as dystopian as you can get, very dystopian. It was rough. It was rough, and Now we have these guys who are known as the Car Barn Bandits who grew up basically right in the middle of all of this. Of course, there were other kids that didn't lead a life of crime, but I'd be hard pressed to say that, most children who were growing up back then, um, they knew about the criminal element, they knew about the levee district, they knew about, you know, what can be gotten. They knew how crooked the police were, how crooked the politicians were. And they're growing up in the middle of all of this stuff. And it's just an interesting era, especially if you're looking at it from a point of view of, a young person, you know, who back then people were very religious back then, even the prostitutes and even the crooked politicians, religious. And, they're teaching all these values, but no, hardly few are actually following these values. And then they wonder why, children who grow up within this mess grow up to become monsters. That's exactly what the Car Barn Bandits were. They were monsters. They were monsters of their time, monsters of their era, a symptom of a larger sickness beside the city of Chicago. The characters: Peter Niedermeier, Harvey Van Dine, Gustave Marx, and Emil Roeski. The Car Barn Bandits just consisted of Peter, Harvey, and Gustave. Emil was kind of like a tag along. He was a weak minded young man, very impressionable, kind of slow. He didn't have all his facilities with him. And he was very easy to manipulate. And if it wasn't for the fact that basically he would do whatever to win the approval of Peter, Harvey, and Gustave, they probably would have killed him. Um, like this story is so, it is so deep. Like people like to concentrate on the actual car barn robbery, but it's way deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. I know there are a lot of people out there who know more about it than I am. I'm not trying to claim that I know every single detail about the lives of these people. But nevertheless, people like me, when I become interested in some sort of history, um, I invest my whole entire being into the story. I research and I research more and I dig and I go looking for sources and I try to line things up, even if, there aren't any direct lines mentioned in the literature that I read. I find the threads just using common sense and just, I used to be a young man myself. I used to be in the street. I know what it's like to be in a gang. I know what it's like to be gang affiliated. I've seen a lot of crazy shit in my life, and to take that experience and then look at the lives of the Car Barn Bandits, I understand it. I understand it probably more than the experts do, as far as the soul, as far as the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Yes, you can memorize all of the newspaper clips and the books that were written about the Car Barn Bandits. There's actually a website up um, that talks about the Car Barn Bandits, but it doesn't really go into a lot of depth. I'm about going deep, deep like the Titanic into um, the historical stories that I'm interested in. And the Car Barn Bandits definitely fit that bill. I've been researching the Car Barn Bandit story for about 6 years now, maybe more than that. And I've gathered a lot of material and I know quite a bit about the story. Um, I just my mind, I just don't commit things to memory as much. you know, I write things down, I chuck it off, and I set it to the side for later. You know, so there could be some information that I mentioned about the Car Barn Bandits that is not accurate. And that's all right because I'm going to be recording more videos talking about these guys more and actually going into the facts of the matter for some of the situations. All right. So I'm going to find my notes here. And like I said, this is impromptu. I'm just testing this live stream. Really, I'm not prepared, if you will, to actually do this broadcast in the correct way. But when I do the second broadcast, I'll be a lot more prepared. So let's see here. All right, what I'm doing is I'm just loading up some more of my notes and stuff so I won't be completely assed out on this broadcast here. All right. Okay. So the Car Barn Bandits actually called themselves the Automatic Trio, which is a name that I like better. I don't like the Car Barn Bandit title. That's the title that the media of the time gave the perpetrators of the actual car barn robbery. I hate the Car Barn Bandits. I don't like it. I would rather use the title that they gave themselves, which was the Automatic Trio. Okay, and like I stated, the Automatic Trio consisted of Harvey Van Dine, and I believe Harvey Van Dine was the brains of the operation. He was the leader. I think I can bring some photographs up for you if I can figure out this screen sharing stuff. Let's see if I can find it. I know I got some photos of these guys in here. I don't know if they'll show up. Um, Let me remove this screen. Add another one. Let's see. All right, so if I find a picture of these guys, fellas here, I'm going to bring them up in here. Come on, where are you? You're looking for something, you can never find it in time. All right. Okay, so here are some artist renditions of what the Car Barn Bandits look like, the automatic trio. You have Harvey Van Dine here on the left, and then you have Gustave Marx here in the middle, and you have Peter Niedermeier here on the right. These three young men are the automatic trio, all right? They are the original core group of um, the Car Barn Bandits. Don't smoke, kids. It's a bad habit. All right, so these three young men here are the topic of discussion, and they were very consequential in Chicago society back then in 1903. And by no means were these the only criminals in the city. Now, I told you there was a deeply rooted criminal element, and I meant that. Um, the crime to do at the time was robbery. Okay, robbery was the going uh, crime of the day, and basically things like pickpocketing, armed robbery, and armed meaning with either revolvers or with knives, bats and clubs, chains, wrenches, anything that could inflict damage. But mostly the weapons were used to scare people and not to hurt people. And most of the time it worked. Okay. They didn't want to, most people didn't want to kill anyone, though they weren't afraid to do so if they deemed it necessary. The murder rates back then were quite high. I haven't seen anything to tell, what the difference is between the murder rates of Chicago from 1903 and compare them to the murder rates of today. But I would dare to say that they were running neck and neck. I have another photo here that I just found of the original. Well, actually, Gustav Marx is missing from this particular photo, but you can see here, this is Harvey Van Dine. All right. He was actually in the military. He had military experience, which, in my opinion, made him quite a dangerous individual. Like I said, he was the brains. And Harvey, um, I'm not sure exactly if he's seen any action while he was in the military. Off the top of my head, right now, I can't remember. But he was in the military. I know that he was stationed in Cuba for a time. There was some military interest going on in Cuba as far as the American military um, back in those days. Like I said, those reasons right now escape me, and I don't want to talk about those reasons right now. But he was a military guy. He was very strategic, very cerebral. He was a family man, and he had a fiance. So he had a support system. But on the side, he chose to indulge in the life of crime. And as I stated before, Harvey was the leader of the group. Um, Actually, I should say, I'm not sure. The Car Barn Bandits didn't necessarily state that Harvey was the leader of the group. Um, but the way that he moved, the things that he said, the way the media spoke about him, he was very highly intelligent. So I believe it was the media who deemed him to be the leader of the automatic trio, but actually he was not officially named the leader by the actual group itself. All right. Harvey was a very patient guy. He rarely raised his voice. And I believe the other members of the Car Barn Bandits actually kind of looked up to Harvey a little bit. But there was no trust. There is no honor amongst these. These guys didn't trust each other, but they were friends. But, no honor amongst thieves. I'm going to talk more about Harvey in a minute. Right now, I'm going to move on to this guy right here, Peter Niedermeier. This guy right here, I like this guy as a character, as, someone to write about, someone to, dive into. This is a very complex guy. Pete was not as smart as Harvey. He grew up kind of rough. His parents were very old by the time he became grown. I believe when he was 21, his parents were in their 80s. So there was a gap, between him and his families, particularly between him and his father. Excuse me. His family were German immigrants. They were very, very religious people. I think they celebrate Orthodox Catholicism. I'm not sure. You guys probably let me know. But Peter Niedermeier was a treacherous young man. He was treacherous. All right. The things that he had to go through, the things that he seen while living in the streets, complete total opposite almost of Harvey Van Dine, the guy that I just talked about earlier. This man was treacherous. He was a predator. He was definitely a predator. He was the one killing people before the rest of the group got into it. You know what I'm saying? Peter Niedermeier was the first one out of the group to own a semi-automatic hand pistol, which were not popular back in 1903. They were just like hitting the commercial market. And not a lot of thieves and bandits were using automatic weapons during his time. That's why they called themselves the automatic trio. Having an automatic pistol was like having a Rolex, and they didn't pull any stops with their pistols. They decorated them with pearl and amber. They were very ornate weapons. Also weapons that were very unique to them because of these customizations. And it was the automatic pistols that ended up getting them caught. We'll talk about that later. And this young man right here, Emil Roeski, like I stated before, this guy was not officially a part of the Car Barn Bandits. He was a tag-along. All right. Roeski grew up rougher than all the rest of the fellas. His family were drunkards. His mother might have been into prostitution. Don't quote me on that. That's just something that I inference. His father was definitely an abusive drunk. His brother, Otto, was more, what I should say, he was more apt to being a working man. He held down a lot of jobs, and it was actually Otto that was really like the main breadwinner in the Roeski family. And Roeski would work as well, but he would often get fired. He was lazy. He was a drunkard by the time he was 18. He was dirty, nasty. He smelled. He didn't have any friends, but he was well known in the neighborhood that he stayed in for these reasons, obviously. And it was for these reasons why the Automatic Trio really didn't want to associate themselves with him. But Roeski was so enamored with these people. Like, he was very impressionable. He wanted to do whatever it took to be a part of the group. All right. He wanted to be down. And he was just looking for somewhere to belong, you know. He was just looking for somewhere to belong. And because he was kind of slow up here. He was definitely a couple bottles short of a 6-pack. But the other people in the group, Automatic Trio, would get him to do whatever they wanted him to do. And he was glad to do it, usually. Sometimes they had to force him to do things. They'd bully him or, rough him up a little bit, pull a gun on him every now and then, kind of scare him, keep him in his place. They had no intentions of actually having Roeski join the group. He was just their little lapdog. And he was very interesting, this guy, Emil Roeski here. And the other guy is Gustave Marx. Okay. Gustave, he's another one of my favorite characters. He was the ladies' man. I got a picture of him. He's kind of a ghoulish looking fella. Where are you, Gustave? I know I got a picture of Gustave in here somewhere. Where are you, Gus? I guess I could use this one. Okay. All right, here we go. This is Gus. Our artistic rendition of him. Gus, like I said, he was kind of a ghoulish looking character. He was the ladies' man. And really, Gus, like Harvey, had no reason to be a criminal. He had a very good support system. He was a jack of all trades, and one of his major trades was being a painter. And he worked off and on as a painter, but like I said, he lived a life of crime as well. He was into pickpocketing and other types of petty crimes, and he also later on eventually bought himself an automatic pistol. Um, he was cerebral but quiet. He was the quieter one out of the gang. And Gustave, he hated Emil Roeski. He always constantly threatened to kill Emil because he just thought Emil was completely and totally useless. Steel City Storm, what's up, man? My bad, I didn't see you here. I got everything in the way. But yeah, this guy here, this fella here, he was also treacherous, but really more treacherous towards Emil than he was to anyone else. Like I said, he was a ladies' man, the socialite of the group, even though he was quiet. If you wanted to find Gus, just go to the tavern. He'll be the guy there that was dressed well. He always had money on him and always had ladies on his arm. You think a ghoulish looking guy like this fella here, wouldn't attract a lot of ladies, but you'd be mistaken. He was definitely a ladies' man. So all four of the Car Barn Bandits, I just showed them to you. And like I said, these fellas terrorized Chicago in 1903. They had a very short run, but it was a hell of a run, an epic run, the type of run that stood the test of time. So, like I said, this was just a test string. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the story just yet. I really want to save it for my plant videos. And this GRL fan, I'm out. Look up the Car Barn Bandits. See for yourself. You see how treacherous these guys really were. All right. Y'all have a good night.